So the market in Chattanooga is strong, and I think Schulte believes that this is a trophy property. It's got tremendous convention facilities, meeting room space in the hotel, and an opportunity, if you've been by there, to kind of enliven the whole front of that building along Broad Street with, kind of repurposed retail and restaurants. So I think there'll be good things to come.
Sorry, and with form-based coding coming the future decades out, assuming that Schulte maintains this property, you have more of that kind of street life in view. Have you followed the form-based coding redesign hopes for downtown, Tom?
Yes, I don't know it intimately, but I'm aware of it, and yes, that fits into the fabric well. And I think Schulte has demonstrated an ability to kind of look at some properties like this. I mean, the property is a very nice hotel. It's a very well built and well maintained hotel over time. But it's 2001 when it was built. It's 2017 now. And, assets like that, especially in the leisure space, need to have upgrades and updates. So that's kind of happening, and I think that's in the plan.
Well, tell my listener about the city's benefits now. We've heard about the future of the new owner of the Chattanoogan is Schulte Hospitality, and the seller is city government. What did Daisy Madison, what did the city council see in the need to sell this property? What were the problems of keeping it, and what are the benefits? There's the $32 million price tag that we have been reporting, and what are the benefits to the city? List them all out, Tom Morris, please.
So, as I mentioned before, David, I think when the city, and if you talk to the mayor, he will say this, and I think it's absolutely the case. When the city built the hotel, the desire was to create economic stimulus. I think that the city believes that job has been done. And I think anybody can look around objectively and come to that same conclusion. Cities and governments in general are not the best owners of hotels. It's not their core business. And so the city said, look, if there's a way for us to repay the debt associated with the hotel and to allow this property back on the tax rolls and get a private owner to own it, operate it, upgrade it, and run it like a true business, that we're all going to be better off. And in fact, that's what has been accomplished. We're able to relieve the debt, so there'll be $32 million plus in debt being taken off the city's books. They were paying debt service on that. They would have had to pay many more years of debt service going forward. That's no longer an obligation of the city. And the property will now generate real estate taxes. It'll be in private ownership, and the city will, enjoy the taxes going forward as it would with any other commercial property.
So it's a corporate property.
It really views it as a win-win.
Well, all right. Say something about the tax, the estimated tax revenue annually from the Chattanooga, Tom Morris, and are there other income streams that the city can count on from that property?
The biggest is the tax revenue, and that's currently estimated, and again, that's up to the assessor at the end of the day, but it's currently estimated about $650,000 a year in tax revenue that will come to the city. So if you think about the relief of $32 million in outstanding debt, as well as an upside of $650,000 a year tax revenue, that's a win for the city, the schools, and others in Chattanooga.
And that $650,000 tax revenue, Tom Morris, does that include the hotel motel tax, which goes to pay for ball fields and tourist-oriented infrastructure payments, or is that beyond?
That. No, that's just real estate tax.
Okay.
That is not the other hotel.
Okay, because that's I don't think that property generates that tax now. I would think it doesn't, since it was city owned. Right now, it'll generate a large wad every quarter.
I don't know exactly the answer to that. I do know on the real estate tax side, though.
Right, but there are also personalty taxes that would be paid by a company, I don't know what else there would be, but at least those two. So what about now? I read in the Chattanoogan's report on this, Tom Morse of PFM, which is Public Financial Management, and he mentioned that there was a parking area that will generate income for the city as well. Is that part of this deal? Explain that.
Well, there will be a lease. The parking facility that is adjacent to the hotel is currently used by the hotel. It's also used by the TVA, and the future hotel owner will also have parking spots in that parking garage. So those will get a market rate, whatever that may be, and but that'll be an income stream to the city on that garage. The city continues to own the garage and will own the garage in the future. Now,
say something about the unit price per room. It is a hotel. It has say something about the number of rooms and the dollar amount spent by the buyer, Schulte Hospitality, for the room, and how that amount compares to the cost of a new room at a new hotel if it were to be built in Chattanooga.
Well, I know some of the newer projects that are going up are, in the range of about maybe $225 or $40,000 a room. This calculates to about $160,000 a room. Again, that's just the purchase price for the asset and doesn't include the upgrades that I'm sure that Schulte has planned for the hotel. So from their point of view, as opposed to buying new, this is an ability to buy a hotel in existing property. There's a lot of opportunities with this property it's likely there will be millions of dollars invested by Schulte in kind of rebranding and repurposing some of the, certainly some of the restaurants and some of the retail. There's some opportunities there that Schulte has identified. I think they're going to, you'll have to talk to them about their plans, specific plans. I think they'll want to get in and, like any other new owner, they're going to want to drive the car for a little bit. They're going to want to make sure it's all working, and then they're going to think about the kind of the investment needs once they get on board.
My listener thinks, well, $160,000, that's what my house is worth. But we have to remember this, Tom Morse, and you, the listener, is that your house may have 5 rooms and it doesn't generate a revenue stream, but a hotel room does. So let me ask you this, Tom: how much conceivably would a hotel room at the Chattanooga generate as a cash flow per room? How do you break down the overall cash flow of a hotel and the per room income? Have you done any of that math?
Yeah, typically hotels are looked at on a a net income basis, and so overall there's a when we reviewed the finances, I mean the property is currently it's profitable, although I think as you let off, David, in some years the city has had to subsidize the hotel and to pay debt service. So going forward, that will not be an obligation of the city. Schulte, I'm sure expects to earn a profit.
Let me, this is David Tulis. We're talking with Tom Morse. He is the lead advisor in the sale of the Chattanooga Hotel. And he works for PFM, which is Public Financial Management and Advisory Service. And he handled all the negotiations between the various bidders. And then finally, there were 3 finalists, and the Chattanooga is being sold by the city for $32 million. Let me ask you this. You're in that field of municipal property ownership and infrastructure ownership and the sale thereof. Does Chattanooga, Tom Morse, have other assets like that are very big and expensive that could be bought by somebody else or bought by a corporation for profit? Or is that it, the Chattanooga?
Well, I mean, that was the most glaring asset that the city owned. That it's really there are a number of cities around the country that own hotels. Typically, they're similar to what Chattanooga did, which is they're related to economic development and convention center activity. I think increasingly cities are looking at those kinds of assets and saying, is that my core business? Is running a hotel in today's very changing dynamic marketplace the right place to put my money? And I think a lot of them are concluding that it makes sense to kind of exit these assets if they can do so in a way that protects the taxpayers and meets their overall objectives in the cities.
Well, Tom,
you see that around the country.
My listener hears that, and he immediately springing into my listener's mind, Tom Morsh of PFM, is this: well, why is the city thinking of supporting a stadium? That puts the city in the sports business. What do you know about the field in general in stadiums?
I mean, I think that's a pretty typical asset that a lot of cities around the country are doing. That's really generating additional tourism demand and additional tax revenues across the city. That's a common model in the stadium business. The hotel business, that's not a common model. But other cities are looking, I come from Chicago. Chicago was very notable in getting out of the parking business. They had 37,000 parking meters that they transferred to the private sector to operate those. It was a controversial transaction at the time, but from a financial standpoint, it was a very good decision for the city of Chicago, and they're very happy about that today.
So you're not willing to make any kind of...
Cities are challenged and are all looking for opportunities to kind of focus their services, make sure their balance sheet is in condition, and operate, without trying to impact their citizens with more heavy tax burdens.
Well, that's you have that risk to the taxpayer when you have commercial government, which is to say government with two ledgers under the comprehensive annual financial report. You have the government services part, and then you have the business part. And right. I think here Chattanooga is slimming down its business side, though it has, of course,
I think they've
EPB.
been on the front end of it, and Chattanooga has very much been. They've had wonderful leadership. And focused on these issues of right-sizing government, focusing on the things that drive value for the citizens. And if you look at the economics in Chattanooga, it's paying off. And that's why people like Schulte came in here and are making that investment, because it's going to make sense. It's a great place to do business. And, those strategies have been paying off in states. I think Mayor Burke has certainly done that.
Well, listen, Tom Morsh, you've been gracious enough to chat with my listener, me here on Nooga Radio, and you are from PFM, Public Financial Management in Chicago, and the man who brought all the parties together the two parties together to have the sale of Chattanoogan for $32 million to Schulte Hospitality, a new landlord, a new capitalist venture here in Chattanooga. So thank you very much for chatting with us.
Thank you, David, and have a great day.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, this is David Tulis, and we've been talking with Tom Morsh and learning about the city's getting out of the hotel business. Now, that's a very significant point to note and to think favorably of. I think the city should think, that people in the city and people like you, my listener, should think in favor of Andy Burke's administration having this done and getting Daisy Madison to oversee this company, this consulting business that made the details happen and did all the legwork as she does some of the more routine things in city government. And it's good that the city is not a business partner. It's good that we have, I guess, one less example of a public-private partnership. And if the city focuses on a more limited task, I would say that would be, in the end, that would be justice. That it will be healthier and saner, and it will be more within its competencies. And remember why that I say that, and remember just why it might be true. Okay, it might be true that that's worth considering and worth holding on to as an idea. And that is because people in government don't have to deal with the public, right? In the sense of the customer. The public is not the customer, though we're often told if you call the 911 or 311 or the IRS or any other agency that you are the customer. You call the Department of Safety and Homeland Security, you are a customer of the licensing division, let's just say. But you're really not. You are an object, you're kind of a chattel, and you are someone engaged in that company or that agency by some kind of agreement that you've made for some kind of benefit, right? You're getting a benefit to be a taxpayer, and so you want to do everything right, and you're getting a benefit as a licensee to travel. You become someone involved in commerce, and so you have a benefit in that as well, or so you think. Government people can't make decisions in the marketplace that are customer oriented. Public schools are not customer oriented because the customer in the end is not you, the family man, and your wife and your children. It's the state. The state is the customer because the state pays the bills. And we want Chattanooga to be, as a city government, to be limited in what it does and understand that its competencies are limited. It's not qualified to run a public school system, and now it doesn't. So it's gotten out of that business, and the county now is saddled with that service, as it's called, and unable to bring satisfaction. It brings a lot of kind of dull consent, but not real satisfaction. People are not overjoyed generally with county government operation of schools. The private sector, the corporate sector, will do much better because it is responsive. People who have the profit motive, people who are out of work if they don't succeed, they have every interest to serve, right? The service comes from the free market. Service comes from people who have skin in the game, people who have investments on the line, people who have profits they need to make to pay their expenses, to pay their debts, to pay for their own children's college education or their own children's the inheritance that the children are going to get. They have an interest to serve the customer because in view of that service to the customer are the other things in the background. They should be in the background, and that would be rewarding family and supporting family and taking care of senior citizens and giving to charity and to ball leagues and things like that. And that's what the private life is all about. And I think government actors can't manage property well. It's probably a truism that the government people, though they may be good people, in the end can't deliver. They can't deliver. They can't maintain prices. They can't maintain security. They can't maintain productivity. And that is because there is not the profit motive. There is not. They're going to get paid regardless, right? They're going to, and they have taxation. The fact that they can have a guaranteed income stream means that they don't have to care. They don't have to serve the family that has children and needing education. They don't have to serve those people because they have the guarantee of the tax. The clients are the victims, and the clients pay the tax. And so now, well, we even though they're the ones paying for it, we don't have to respond to the market. We don't have to respond to the real world. We can have our kind of NPR curriculum and maintain all of our illusions through our curriculum. And people can't change it. People have given up trying to change public education. Reforms for public schools, whether it's OBE or Common Core, are making things worse. And that is because there is a human mining operation in the background, the data mining field, that has everything to gain from controlling what children learn and controlling all their tests, all their data. There's a vast trove of human information used by scientists and marketers and industry, mining these children's souls, if you will, in a kind of digital pornography. Well, this is David Tulis, and the Chattanoogan is gone off the city's rolls. And bravo, Daisy Madison, bravo, Mayor Burke. This is very good news that you have made this happen. And there is a payment to be received, taxes to be collected since you plan to do that upon this corporation, and debt to be written off. That's to be paid off. That's very, very good. And the city should be glad of the Mayor Burke administration in having brought this about. This is David Tulis covering local economy and the free market in Chattanooga and beyond. Love your neighbor, buy local. That's my theme. Sponsored by Nooganomics.com. Read the story about the deaf, the mentally challenged, and people who are in bad health. They often are shot dead by the guild. David Tulis.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4.